The city was a restless shadow that night, its neon pulse flickering under a sky heavy with lies. I'm Evelyn, a ghost in this urban sprawl, always watching, always catching the moments people think they've hidden. My apartment window overlooks their bedroom, a softly lit sanctuary where secrets hum like the buzz of a distant storm. I didn't mean to see what I saw, but some stories sink their claws into you and hold tight. This one started with a whisper, a touch, and a betrayal that burned brighter than the moon. Her name was Laura, mid-30s, with a body that moved like a secret, and eyes that held a dangerous spark. She was married to Richard, a man who lived for his late-night deals, leaving her to navigate the lonely nights alone. But it was his business partner, Nathan, who filled the air with tension. Nathan was early 30s, all quiet charm and sharp edges, with a voice that could unravel you. That night, Richard was at a meeting downtown, and Laura was in their bedroom, her satin nightgown catching the glow of a bedside lamp, her hair loose and wild. Nathan was there too, lingering after a late discussion, his presence like a spark in a dry room. I was at my window, a glass of wine in hand, the city's hum a low buzz in my ears. Their bedroom curtains were parted, the lamp's soft light spilling out, catching Laura's silhouette as she sat on the edge of the bed, her nightgown clinging to her curves. Nathan stood by the door. His tie loosened, his shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing the taut lines of his arms. "You should rest," he said, his voice low, carrying across the night. She smiled, soft but nervous, and patted the bed beside her. My wine glass trembled in my hands, but I didn't look away. He stepped closer, his hand brushing her shoulder, and she froze, her breath catching. The lamplight cast a warm glow over her skin, highlighting the curve of her neck, the dip of her collarbone. "Laura," he whispered, his voice rough like he was fighting himself, and then softer. "I love you." She looked up, her eyes meeting his, and I saw the spark, guilt, desire, the kind of hunger that drowns out reason. My heart quickened, my glass cold against my fingers. This wasn't just a late-night talk, it was a fuse, and they were lighting it. Nathan's hand lingered on her shoulder, steady but bold, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into him, her nightgown slipping slightly, revealing a sliver of skin. The city was silent, but their world was alive, charged with a heat that had nothing to do with the summer night. I should have closed my curtains, should have gone to bed and let them have their sin. But I stayed, my eyes locked on them, my pulse a traitor. I lit a cigarette, the flame trembling as I watched them teeter on the edge of something they couldn't take back. The bedroom was a stage now, the lamplight casting shadows that danced with their desire. Laura sat on the bed, her nightgown barely holding on the satin, clinging to her curves like a lover's hands. Nathan was close, too close, his hands on her hips, his fingers digging in like he was claiming something he had no right to. I watched from my window, my cigarette burning low, my heart pounding like I was the one crossing the line. The night was still, but their world was electric, alive with the tension between them. "Laura," he said again, his voice a low growl, and she shivered, her hands gripping the edge of the bed. "I meant it," he murmured, referring to his whispered confession, but it was a lie, and I sensed it even from across the street. His hand slid up her side under the satin, and she gasped, her head tilting back, exposing the line of her throat. I could see it all the way, her lips parted, the way his fingers traced her skin, the way their bodies leaned into each other like they were starving. My cigarette ash fell, my breath caught as I watched them slide deeper into the abyss. The lamplight flickered, casting a golden glow over her skin, highlighting the sweat on her brow. His lips grazed her jaw, slow, deliberate, and she leaned into him, her hands moving to his chest, tugging at his shirt. The buttons gave way, revealing the hard lines of his body, and I felt the heat of it secondhand, but just as potent. I thought of Richard downtown, trusting her, loving her. I thought of the life they'd built, the promises she was breaking. But here she was, letting Nathan's hands roam, letting his touch unravel her. The city's hum was gone, replaced by the sound from their bedroom. Her soft gasps, his low murmurs, the rustle of fabric as her nightgown slipped to the floor. His hands were bolder now, sliding down her thighs, pulling her closer against the bed. She didn't stop him. Instead, she wrapped her arms around his neck, her breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. My own breath was shallow, my heart racing with a mix of shame and fascination. I was just a neighbor, a stranger, but their desire was pulling me under. Nathan's lips found her neck, leaving marks she'd have to hide, and she arched into him, her body yielding in a way that screamed betrayal. The lamplight caught the sweat on her skin, the tension in his arms, and I saw the guilt in her eyes, a flicker of doubt that was quickly drowned by want. My cigarette burned my fingers, and I cursed under my breath, my eyes still locked on them. The city was asleep, but I was awake, a witness to their sin, my own longing, a traitor I couldn't silence. They moved closer, their bodies a rhythm that was both reckless and inevitable. The bed creaked, the lamplight flickered, and I saw the urgency in their movements, the knowledge that Richard was far away, but the risk was always there. "Don't stop," she whispered, her voice raw, desperate, and I felt it like a jolt, the intimacy of it, the sin of it. I wanted to turn away, to close my curtains and pretend I'd seen nothing, but I couldn't. Their desire was a drug, and I was hooked. The bedroom was a haze now, the lamplight dimmed the air, thick with their heat. Laura and Nathan were tangled, her nightgown gone, her body pressed against the bed, his hands claiming her like she was his. I watched from my window, my cigarette long gone, my heart pounding like I was the one in his arms. The night was quiet, but their world was loud, alive with the sounds of their desire. Breaths, sighs, the creak of the bed under their weight. The city slept, but I was awake, caught in their fire. "Nathan," she whispered, her voice breaking, a plea and a surrender all at once. He didn't answer, just pressed closer, his lips on her throat, slow and deliberate, leaving marks that would haunt her come morning. I could see it all, the curve of her spine, the sweat on his brow, the way her legs shifted, pulling him closer. My own breath caught my hands, trembling as I gripped the windowsill, my eyes traitors. I wasn't supposed to feel this way, wasn't supposed to let their sin seep into me, but it did, raw and unfiltered. The lamplight buzzed, casting shadows that danced with their movements. His hands were bolder now, sliding down her body, exploring every inch, and she gasped, her nails digging into his shoulders. The sound was intimate, too intimate, and I felt like an intruder, but I couldn't stop watching. I thought of Richard downtown, trusting her, loving her. I thought of the promises she'd made, the life she was betraying. But here she was, giving herself to Nathan, letting him take her apart piece by piece. His lips moved down her chest, slow, deliberate, and she arched into him, her breath coming in sharp, desperate gasps. "Keep going," she murmured, her voice raw, urgent, and I felt the weight of it, the sin of it, like a blade in my chest. The lamplight caught the sweat on her skin, the tension in his arms, and I saw the guilt in her eyes, a flicker of doubt that was quickly drowned by desire. My window was cold, but their world was bright, electric, and I was caught in its pull, my heart racing with a mix of shame and fascination. Then I saw it, a glint of metal on the nightstand, a phone left behind its screen lighting up with a message. It wasn't Richard's name, but another woman's, a name that carried weight, a name that screamed betrayal of its own. Nathan didn't notice, but Laura's eyes flicked to it, and I saw the shift doubt betrayal, the realization that his "I love you" was a lie. Yet she didn't stop him. She pulled him closer, her hands fierce, as if to drown the truth in their heat. I wanted to scream, to bang on my window and stop them, but my voice was gone, swallowed by the fire of their moment. The city was silent, but their bedroom was alive with the sounds of their sin breaths, sighs, the creak of the bed. I was complicit, watching from the dark my window, a silent stage for their fall. The night was theirs, and I was just a shadow, a keeper of their betrayal, my own longing, a traitor I couldn't silence. The city stirred, but I was still there, stained by what I'd seen, my heart heavy with their secret. The bedroom was a world apart now, the lamplight fading the air, heavy with the aftermath of their sin. Laura and Nathan were still tangled, her body pressed against the bed, his hands resting on her hips, possessive, reluctant to let go. The silence was thick, broken only by their ragged breaths, the soft rustle of fabric as they shifted. I watched from my window, my wine glass empty, my heart heavy with their secret. The city was waking, the first hints of dawn creeping in, but the weight of what I'd seen was eternal. "Laura," he said, his voice low, almost tender, but there was no tenderness in what they'd done. She opened her eyes, her gaze heavy with guilt, satisfaction, and something new, anger, betrayal, the sting of the truth she'd glimpsed on his phone. His hand traced her jaw, slow, possessive, and she leaned into it, but her eyes were distant, her body still yielding, but her heart fractured. The lamplight swayed, catching the glow, and I saw the marks on her skin, the way her nightgown was a forgotten heap on the floor. It was over, but it wasn't. Their story would linger in her eyes, in his touch, in the lies they'd both tell. I thought of Richard downtown, trusting her, loving her, unaware of the fire burning in his bedroom. I thought of the life they'd built, the promises she was breaking. But here she was, tangled in Nathan's arms, her body marked by his hands, her heart torn between want and the bitter truth of his deception. The guilt was there in the way her fingers hesitated before touching his face, but it wasn't enough to undo what they'd done. They'd burned too bright, and now they'd have to live with the ashes. Nathan kissed her again, softer this time, like he was trying to hold on to the moment before it slipped away. She let him, but her hands didn't linger, her touch cold as if she could feel the lie in his words. The night was ending, the city waking up, the first cars humming in the distance. They pulled apart, slow, reluctant, and she stood smoothing her skirt, her nightgown still on the floor. He watched her, his eyes dark, unreadable, and I felt the weight of it, the truth they'd both have to carry, her betrayal of Richard, his betrayal of her. I stepped back from the window, my apartment dark, the city stirring outside. They'd go back to their lives, Laura, to Richard, to the life she was supposed to live. Nathan to his deals, his charm, his other secrets. But I'd seen it, the fire, the fall, and the bitter truth that cut deeper than their desire. It would stay with me, a wound that wouldn't heal. The dawn was breaking, but it didn't feel clean. It felt heavy, like the weight of their sin and mine. I closed my curtains, the city's lights fading in the morning haze. Their story was over for now, but it wasn't finished. It would linger in the way Laura moved, in the lies she'd tell, in the anger that would simmer beneath her guilt. And I'd carry it too, a shadow across the building, a keeper of their betrayal. The city woke, but I was still there, stained by what I'd seen, my heart heavy with their secret. So what do you think? Did this story burn you? Like it burned me? Smash that like button if you felt the heat, or drop a comment if you've got a secret that's tearing you apart. Not feeling it? Tell me why I can handle it. Subscribe for more raw, real tales that'll keep you hooked, and share this with someone who loves a scandal as much as you do. Until next time, keep those secrets tight, or maybe let them slip.